You're watching Darrell J. Bennett Live. I'm so excited to be with you, and I can't wait to help you live a higher, more prosperous, more powerful, and more purpose-filled life. Let me tell you about myself. I'm Darrell J. Bennett. I wrote my first book at 18 years old. I started my first company at 21, and I graduated from Harvard Law School at 24. I know how to help people move into another stratosphere of destiny, to operate at a higher level. And that's what I'm here to help you do. Your life is never going to be the same again. Friends and family all over the world, this is Darrell J. Bennett. What's up, everyone? How you doing today? Today I want to talk about something that's really serious. It's the death, the killing, the murder of NYPD officer. I think his name is Jonathan Diller. I know his last name is Diller for sure. And all of the things that have occurred since then. Donald Trump, who's been to the city to talk about being tough on crime and, making this a part of his presidential campaign and calling out Biden and Obama, of all people. Obama's not even president anymore, but Obama for not visiting the family and all of the nastiness of people who say this murder happened because this man was on the streets and shouldn't have been on the streets, and so they're mad at Democratic lawmakers. What made me break my silence was the suggestion, the insinuation, the reporting, whether it's true or not. Some have said it's true, some have said it's not true, but that Governor Hochul, the governor of New York, who visited the wake, was asked to leave. What is certainly true, whether or not she was asked to leave or she just left on her own, is that some officers were confronting her outside of the venue and people were clapping and applauding as he walked away and whatever. I have a couple things I need to say. I just need to get this off my chest. The first thing I want to say is, and I don't just say this to just say this firstly, I really mean this. Any loss of life is not a good thing. So my heart goes out to his family, the fact he has young children. He's a young man. It's really all unfortunate. And it's no but to that. It's no but to that. That's period. It's an unfortunate situation. If this was my brother, if this was my friend, if this was someone I knew, heck, I don't even know this person. It's just a person that I'm hearing about. It's horrible to hear. Someone just doing their duties throughout the day at their job and is killed. It's a horrible thing. No question about it. Full stop. My angst about all of it is, why can't we just be mad that someone shot this man? Why can't we just be mad about that? Why can't we just be mad at that person? Why does it have to somehow turn into a whole discussion about justice reform? Because now you're taking it somewhere you don't want it to go. I promise you don't want it to go there. Because let's talk about it. If we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it. First of all, those of us who believe in community policing, if we're leaders of the city, this would have never happened. Why is that? He lived in Long Island, but he's policing people in Queens. Why is that? Why aren't you policing people in your own place? Where you live. That's what community policing is. Because we believe that with community policing, people treat the people better, people understand the people more, people have more of a understanding of not just the people, but the people that they are policing have more of an understanding of them. What we know for a fact, this is a fact, it's 100% fact, is that when you use community policing in cities, that more than not crime falls. Overwhelmingly. But you take somewhere like New York City, people don't want to do community policing. Why is that? One, because people like the anonymity. to go into other places where they wouldn't be caught dead and otherwise. They work there, but otherwise they wouldn't be there. And so they're policing in areas that they don't know the people. Many times they don't even like the people. I'm not saying this is Dillard's issue because I don't know him. I'm just saying what happens more than not. They don't like the people. They don't respect the people. They don't look like the people. They don't know the people's story, and they're policing them. And they don't want to live in the same areas. And so what happens? There's a heightened level of distrust between officers and those they are policing, and very bad things happen. So the first thing I think we need to talk about is, why are we not adopting a more community policing approach here in New York City? You notice that the wake isn't being held where the police stop where he was murdered was. You notice that. You notice he lived in an entirely different place. And this is what those of us who have been talking for years about the over-policing and over-criminalization of neighborhoods and communities and regions of people who have historically been disenfranchised. This is what we've been saying. This is what we've been saying. That it's not just bad for the people that are being policed, it's bad for the police. This is the answer. Do you think if he knew the people and he knew the region where he was working, do you think that this sort of thing would have happened? Probably not. Because it's a true statement. I've heard it said before, and I really believe it's true. It's hard to hate up close. What does that mean? When you know someone, even if you don't know them personally, but you know that they know you and you've seen them and there's some level of rapport, it's hard to be vicious the way this person was vicious to this officer. It is horrible. He had young kids. He had a young wife. He had a whole life ahead of him. Now, I also want to say this. For those of us that are Christians, I'm not saying this for everybody else because I don't know what your faith tradition might be. I'm talking about for those of us that are Christians. We believe that a life is a life. People die every day in this city, unfortunately. In some cases, it's caught on camera. In some cases, it's caught on camera, and it's done by the same people that are supposed to protect and serve. Where's the voice for those people? When does the governor or the mayor or president come to see them when their children are killed? Sometimes in the street, sometimes with their hands behind their back, sometimes with their hands held up, sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50 bullet wounds. So we have to have an honest, real, true, transparent conversation about where do we really value life? The other thing that's really interesting here is that Trump, and I'll give him a handle because I want to be respectful here, President Trump, former President Trump, running to be again President Trump, shows up to speak on, to speak at the wake or speak after the wake or whatever. I don't know what he did, but he was there. And they said he paid the family's mortgage off. And I think that's wonderful. You're never going to hear me say anything negative about that. That's a wonderful thing. Hey, it's a beautiful thing. But let me ask you this. You think he gives a damn about that family? Let's be real now. Okay? When the cameras have turned off and the press retinue has gone to the next thing, and we're cleaning up from all of the folks that were there, when we're really thinking about all this, honestly, do you think he cares? Why would you allow yourself and your family to become a pawn of this man? Why? I promise it's not going to lead to what you think it's going to lead to or you want it to lead to. This tragic incident and murder would not have been stopped by making laws harsher. That's the truth of the matter. It's the harsh laws that have created what we have now. Over criminalization of communities and the distrust that is rife. And I'm going to just call it what it is. And Black and Hispanic communities didn't come from people who are advocates of restorative justice. It comes from years and decades and generations of brutality and torture and nastiness and hate on the side and by the people that were supposed to serve and protect. This does not happen because people were let out of jail after a charge that you felt like they should have stayed in there for. I can promise you that. I can absolutely promise you that. And if you're spiritually in tuned, you understand that. And I don't mean this to sound harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I think it needs to be said. If it wasn't Peter, it would have been Paul. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? This thing occurred because it is a rife distrust in this city, in this nation, between the people that are supposed to police, and God knows I wouldn't want their job because I know it's hard and I know it's not easy. And I know there's many good people that are police officers, but there's a distrust. And if you think that making the laws harsher, and if you think by keeping people in prison longer would have changed any of this, then you are really short-sighted. We already have some of the harshest laws of any so-called developed country in the world. There's no other country in the world other than China that incarcerates more people than we do. And China, let's be clear, has 5 times more people than we have. So they incarcerate more people, but they don't incarcerate more people population-wise. We beat the world in that. So when you hear these people talk about tough on crime and people need to stop being lenient, we're not lenient. It's because you take people, and in some cases, they're teenagers, and you put them in prison for years. Because in the case of like Khalif Browder, well, they had a backpack that was stolen. And so you put them in Rikers for 3 years. Or in the case of others, maybe it was something more serious. And they're there for years. And their manhood is taken. You know what I'm talking about. Not just the way you think I'm talking about, but their manhood is taken in their dignity, their self-respect, their sense of self-worth, their way of life. And then you release them back on the street. They're going to get released. For everybody that's angry about they should have stayed in there, these people are going to get released. Unless they shot and killed somebody, they were going to get released. So your argument that they should have stayed in there longer and that would somehow, some way, in some sense, have prevented this tragedy? Really? I get it. When we're angry, we just want to lash out at somebody. I understand that. I really do. I've been there. But your anger is misplaced. Because the truth of the matter is, those of us who believe in restorative justice and community policing and ways of diversion, we're trying to help alleviate the problem. If you could arrest yourself out of the problem, we would have arrested ourselves out of it in the 90s when you were calling young people super predators. How did that work for you? It didn't. It didn't. And it is sad that this woman is now left with 3 children and her husband is killed. And I know everybody says, well, it's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. You're right. You're absolutely right. I wouldn't want to be a police officer, but at the same token, I didn't sign up to be one. What am I saying? What I'm saying is it should be known. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. It should be known when you sign up for certain careers, you not only take on what you are, but you're taking on the system and what you're viewed as. Is what you're viewed as. I have one of my friends I grew up with in Baltimore, and he became an officer. He's still an officer in Baltimore. He's a third generation officer. His father was an officer. His grandfather was a police officer. And when I hear some of the stories he tells, I'm like, I don't know how you do it. I mean, he tells me, I remember one person, he said, person just tried to run him over just because he was an officer. I'm like, that's horrible. Like, really? And he says to me with a rueful smile, yeah, we caught him and he went to the hospital that night. Now, I mean, I get it. You know, even without the badge, if you try to run me over, I'm going to try to do everything to you that I can if I get my hands on you. But I would hope that officers would realize it's in their best interest to have laws that humanize people. This is what happens when you dehumanize people. This is what happens when we rush to lock people up for any and everything. And we lock them up and we dehumanize them. Take off your clothes, spread your cheeks, pull up your balls. This is what they say. And so what do you think? You put somebody in for years. In some cases, they're put in solitary confinement for weeks, for months. I've known people that's been in solitary confinement for years, and then they release them right into the public. Whose fault really is that? Is that the legal advocates who work to lessen their sentence or make certain that they didn't have a draconian sentence? Or is it the fault of a system that seeks to still enslave people? Because this is the vestiges of chattel slavery. I don't care what you say. Look at it. And I get it. You might feel like, yeah, we're tough on crime, tough on this. Everybody wants to be tough on crime. Don't you hear me? Everybody that has any half of a brain, even people in prison will tell you there has to be order. There has to be order. So this isn't a question about order or law and order. This is a question about humanizing people. This is a question about creating a system that actually corrects and doesn't just create retribution. Because this is what it begets. So you've created retribution and then they're released. What do you think? What do you think it's going to be? Do you think you can have an outright war of aggression against Black and Hispanic people for hundreds of years in this country and there be some level of get back? Like, for real. And don't tell me about this whole I'm you Black and brown, I'm blue. You were made blue. People were born Black and brown in communities, just struggling to survive. This is where I end. Again, my heart goes out to this woman. It really does. Really, my heart goes, I understand she's angry and she might be yelling at people and all that. And I get it. We've all been there. When we're angry, we yell at all kinds of people. My heart really goes out to those kids because they will grow up without having a biological father. My heart goes out to those kids. And I must say, because I think it needs to be said, my heart goes out to kids all over this city who grew up without their fathers. Maybe because their fathers were killed by officers or because their fathers were locked up for years and decades. Locked up for what they did wrong, but kept in there because of an agenda, a diabolical agenda at the highest levels. The truth of the matter is, if we're going to come together and actually solve this, the only way that it's going to happen is for some level of understanding. I'm in there. I'm in there. My prayer is peace for this city. But I think before there's peace in this city and in this nation, there has to be understanding. And for far too long, there has been a perpetuation of violence and aggression and torture against too many of us. And the natural outgrowth of that is what you're seeing here. So if you want to change the product, You got to change the equation.